through a series called Dinners with Jesus, and I've got the privilege of talking about an uncomfortable dinner. I'm not sure if you've ever had an uncomfortable dinner. When I was, I'd finished university and was back at home, and my dad was, and we were living in Lancashire, and had our tea. My dad put his gardening clothes out in the garden digging, and my mum kind of this occasional habit of buying stuff. She'd go to the butcher, and there'd be all strands of horrible and what they are. And she would boil them up for a so the reek of this stuff. The dog just loved it. So Dad was in the garden, in his garden clothes. My mum, and there's a knock on the door, and so Mum goes to the door, and there's the bishop. Mum says, "Hello," and then slightly silence, and he said, "Can I help you?" And my dad had invited him to a meal, and he'd forgotten that he was saying. So Mum, smiley face, "Oh yes, do come on in." So I had to dash down and say, "Dad, come to tea." We'd obviously eaten. He was there in his garden clothes. And, just again, it wasn't. And so it was one of the most comfortable that I think there's ever been in our household. As we've had bread and butter and some old ham. This stench of this dog meat cooking. I'm not sure what he thought as he opened the door and out wafted this kind of, what kind of meal have I got to do? Anyway, it's probably one of the most uncomfortable meals at home. I'm going to look at kind of a meal that a host probably is an uncomfortable meal. Over this series, we've been looking at the fact that it's a real power in a shared meal. As you share a meal, sometimes there's an openness, sometimes there's a conversation where you're enjoying somehow things said and things expressed. And here, this host invites Jesus for a meal, healing, not another miracle, but was death and resurrection, the same as Jonah was in the belly of a fish for 3 days. The Son of Man was going to be in the grave for 3 days, and that was the great sign. And when Jesus had finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him to eat with him. So he went in and reclined at the table. But the Pharisee was surprised when he noticed that Jesus did not first wash before the meal. Now, I imagine that kind of you might say to people, particularly if you're doing the garden, wash your hands before you eat. And I'm sure there would be some kind of just making sure that you wash. But actually, what was happening here, that there was a ritual around washing. It wasn't just about hygiene for eating your food. Actually, there was a whole kind of ritual around washing the outside. You enjoy the intimacy of the meal, and Jesus knew the whole ritual of that washing, and he's slightly kind of upset. Why, Jesus, did you not first wash the meal? We're sharing this meal, and I kind of unclean, kind of, because you didn't go through the whole deal. And Jesus said to him, "Now then, you Pharisees clean the inside of a cup and a dish, but inside you're full of greed and wickedness." Oh no, this meal's turning slightly uncomfortable. People, not the one who inside make the inside also. But now, as it's inside you, generous to the poor, and everything will be clean for you. And then he sets out giving all these kind of woes. Woe to the Pharisees, because you give God a tenth, rue and other kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect the justice of God. You practice the latter, leaving the former undone. Woe to you Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogue, respectable greetings in the marketplace. Woe to you, because you are like unmarked graves who people walk over without and here we go. And one of the answered, "Teacher, when you told us to," Jesus says, "I've got something for you as well." Okay, one of the experts of the law said, teach when you see things, I saw experts of the law, woe to you, because you low people down, cannot carry, and you yourself do not lift them. Woe to you, because you build tombs of prophets, and it was your ancestors who. So you testify, so that you prove of what ancestors did. They build their tombs. Because of this, God, the prophets and apostles, be responsible for the blood of the prophets that have been shed since the beginning of the world, of Abel to the blood of Zechariah. This will be held responsible for it all. Experts of the law, because taken away the key of knowledge, you yourself and you hinder those who are. When Jesus went outside, the Pharisees and the teachers of law began to oppose him and besiege him with questions, waiting to catch him in something he might say. Okay, how do we understand this passage where kind of someone's invited you for tea? You've invited for tea. He's kind of just making mild. Tells the stories. Welcome, kind of feed the 5,000. Let's have to tea. One day Jesus saying stuff. You think, hold on a minute. I like it. Says, this is what you bring life. And it brings words of hope and come. I love the fact that Jesus says he's never going to leave me. But do I love these? As these words, if you say this morning, decided to follow Jesus heartily, when Jesus says this, what is he saying? Is he saying it? And actually, for us small, how can we learn what he's saying? Because it looks as though a little bit kind of not posed very politely. Jesus has got something significant he wants to say to them, and also he wants to say us here as well. First of all, in this mealtime, there seems to be Pharisees, there seems to be there. I think it's helpful to understand the Pharisees. They were eager to pursue the law. They were eager to pursue the law not because they wanted to find God through the law, but they thought that if they kept the law, then God would send a Messiah, and once again, Israel would be top dog. Actually, what they really wanted was to kick the Romans out. What they really wanted was, let's restore Israel to the times of David and Solomon, when they were the kind of the kingpin, when they were the kind of envy of all nations. What if Israel could be like that once again? And the Pharisees thought, what we need to do is we need to ensure that the whole law is followed by the whole nation. So they had this real insistence. Actually, they were eager to pursue the law, not so they could encounter God, but so that Israel could be top dog again, so that the Messiah would come. And so that was their motivation. Their motivation had been lost. The law was given by God for good, to encounter him, to live in God's world, God's way. But somehow the Pharisees had twisted it round for their own ends. Actually, the Pharisees were like a pressure group. I don't know if you, there's probably within Parliament pressure groups that are trying to campaign, they're trying to make things happen, and maybe you feel even in society or amongst your friends, there's people who are kind of moral pressure groups that make you feel bad for eating meat or kind of for not recycling properly or whatever it is, and there's the kind of they seem to hold a kind of moral background. The Pharisees were a bit like that, and on the outside, of course, they were talking a good talk about people, but inside, actually, seriously, actually, the very things that they were saying, keep your distance during COVID, were ones that themselves had. Again, they're moral pressure. And so here's Jesus and with people who are not God-seeking people. They're people that God loves, of course he does. But somehow they've twisted, distorted the law that God had given them for people to they turned it in where they were eager for the kingdom to come, not in the way Jesus was bringing it, but in the political, socio-economic way hope would. So the and the experts of the law, which kind of when the Pharisees said stuff, we've got to hold the law. We've got, if we obey the law, then the Messiah would come. Israel would be great once more. It was the scribes that went away, and they articulated in great detail every possible variation of law keeping. So rather than kind of don't do this, actually, for every situation, here's what this looks like, and so Sabbath, you shouldn't do this. And they kinds of rules they made up. What, you carry a load. Now what does it mean? I think it might mean metal. So if you happen to have a sandal that's got metal pins, that's work. So you can only have sandals that are stitched with leather. And you think, and they would just be there writing out all these little laws. So we've got to make sure that everybody keeps all the laws God intended, and they spelt it out. That, and so the scribes or the law took the philosophy of the Pharisees, and they were the ones that just put this kind of great long list, all kinds of stuff that they believed true followers of Judaism should. So, as Jesus is trying to challenge this attitude, the law was given to people good in God, attitude of just painstakingly have all the stuff that you did on the outside without anything changing on the inside. He challenges outward piety. He challenges outward piety because sometimes you can have, if when you have if there's a that's right on there, or actually the outside could look clean, but actually the inside could be, and outward piety, even through where you want to make sure that you definitely 100% wash clean all the scribes, all kinds of ways that you should do washing, others wash their hands. Piety, but actually they looked fine. But Jesus says actually more true, you're not doing stuff. So the church here. And through modern church times, actually, to seem to have an outward piety, and yet there's something going on inwardly prepared to address the challenge. Again, in the church in Lancaster that I used to go to, there was a lovely gentleman who was one of the kind of the pillars of the church. He was the church. He'd been shredded for 25 years. And so he was encouraged to, I'll keep going to the grave. And the new person, they kind of, hang on a minute, something's not quite. They looked through kind of over the years. They discovered actually there's about £60,000 missing, and so they said to this guy, "Do you actually £60,000 for a church?" And again, he looked like it was, but actually inwardly handling it. Now the addition was body out. What happened is that he'd run out of his money, so he thought, what I can do is just use a bit, but I'll win next time and I can pay it back. And I'll need a bit more because I'm going to next time and I'll pay it back. And eventually, with his accounting skills, cover it up. But eventually, that inward darkness was there. And again, sometimes we can try and manufacture our lives. We can try and make things good on the outside, and it may not be as drastic as there's all kinds of addictions. There's all kinds of things that are things in our inner workings that we know actually at times people do one thing, but during the week, is there something else that's going on there? Allow God to live with the fear, and I think sometimes your internal depend on what people think about you externally. There's got to be something about a radical change in the inside. You need to be clean inside, as look on the outside. The challenge for us. Jesus doesn't want to condemn. Realize you can't change yourself. You do things to drive reality, but actually you can't do anything about what's on here. He's the only person that can do something about what's inside here. You need to deal with that. If you don't, it's a woe, it's a woe, it's a woe. Actually, if Jesus is saying, no, don't go that way. Why would you? Things are going to end up bad. And so this morning, maybe one question is, what's happening on the inside of our lives compared to the outside? He then says that there was outward piety, but what Jesus was longing for was a new direction. It wasn't just about sorting what was wrong on the inside. It was actually a new direction, a new loyalty, a new. Actually, says that kind of again, one of the things about giving a tenth. To give a tenth, if you have a harvest of grapes, a harvest of wheat, give a tenth. If you have lots of sheep that are born, give a tenth. That's what a tithe. They reduce that generosity to, okay, so if you happen to have a herb garden and you've got a mint plant there, if 20 leaves on a mint plant, two of they're taking this just a sense of being generous, being kind, with your resources. Actually, what they've done, all these tiny seeds, they say, you take your little 2 of mint, justice. You forget the love of God. Actually, there's something that you're so being Christian. So actually, you forget that actually there's a bigger thing. There's a devotion of loving. That's justice. The word justice and righteousness are interchangeable within in Greek, and can be just the word righteousness for ourselves, the forgiveness that Jesus brings, the justice, how we should have been treated. We're not, because of the cross. There's a righteousness now available in Jesus. You should be thinking about those things, about an internal devotion, a love for God, a love for His justice, for His kingdom to come, and they reduced it to little leaf mint. I wonder whether we get time to devotion, we just limit it. There's just a few little bits of our time. We'll give those to just a few little bits of our resources. If I pick this little mint out and said, actually, no, I want your whole heart. I want your heart where there's an internal devotion to who God is, to His ways. These words, they do with the beatitude are blessings. If you do, whoa, but if it's bless, and actually, when God's kingdom is blessed, it's a blessed life. If you find in Jesus, find Him, it's a blessed life. But actually, if you become like the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, actually, you narrow things down. You narrow things down. Than blessing in your life. Who's a blessing to? Yes, please. This is what He's not just trying to get a comfortable meal because He just doesn't like toast. He's trying to choose to change. There's Jesus is again, it's not to do with this morning hear the word of Jesus be a challenge. He wants to you say how rotten you are, not just to say you living your outward don't matter. He wants to just finish. Four warning. There's a way that leaves the heart untouched. The arguments, can you come along to church, to home group? Do the stuff. You're home at the end of a sermon and your heart's untouched. That's just practice, right there. I love the fact that you come to church. You come in because it's religious observance and your heart's not touched. There's a problem there. Jesus is warning. When you come, allow your heart to be touched. It's great that Sam said that at the beginning of the service. As we come here, let's just take a little moment for our heart to be touched. It's about importance. This is what we're doing. This is we want to be important, and we realise that it's the external things that make us important, and that's a warning. No, it's the internal things that give importance. It's the internal working of God that gives you the sense of importance. So boasting, that's self-importance. Good piety. Things you said about walking on marked graves. You would actually to walk over, go close to a body was clean. And so somehow, if you have that's unmarked, that people across them, they are basically become we should mark that grave, put that there. And so there was that sense of that inner pollution that appears to be clean. Not anybody here that's like this. For us people who give this outward sense of actually there's something more sinister about what's going on behind it. They're doing things that are covered up and put them up. And what happens is that people run near them and there's stuff on that's not helpful. In a position that there, if you are constantly seeking something that's if you're constantly seeking more money at the expense of honesty, actually, if there's stuff going on, actually, kind of, it's not helping you as well. You're close to the injury. It's just a and make sure you deal with inner pollution. It's I think this thing shall I respond. I think wants to beat them up, put them down. He wants to draw them out. He wants them like nervous and to be frank. Not the external. Don't what boast about the outward stuff. I just about Christ and what He's done. So take a chance to pray. Maybe let's have a little moment of quiet. Maybe you want to rise and when somebody speaks the words that the speaker says, but what's important in what the speaker says. Just someone who loves Jesus. Or wants not to tell you off and to beat you up, but challenge you to turn around. He wants to challenge you to action. He wants to challenge you to have integrity between the outside and the inside that God sees. So ask that question, Jesus, what are you saying to me this morning? And the second question is, what are you going to do about it? And it may be that in this moment you want to just say a prayer to God and say you're sorry. As the worship happens, you might want to get someone to pray with you. You might think, actually, there's something that's been going on. I just tell somebody. Trapped in gambling, I would have told somebody, and it could have been sad. Maybe you want the courage and the bravery to live inside with Jesus, and you know that's hard, and having someone praying with you might be really helpful. But Jesus, we just say now, we hear your voice. We want to take this moment to be honest with you, take things seriously. Actually, we want a life that is blessed and not full of woe, and so we yield to you once again this morning, King Jesus, our and friend. Amen.